Welcome back to MHS Midnight Horror Stories. I know that many of you come to these videos as a gentle way to unwind before drifting off to sleep. So, before you close your eyes tonight, could I ask you for one small favor? Just leave me a quick interaction, a comment, a like, or maybe share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Little actions like that help YouTube recognize the content and spread it to more people who might enjoy it. My current goal is to reach around 300 likes within the first 24 hours. Now then, let's step into tonight's chilling stories together. In this therapist's office, I still can't stop my hands from shaking whenever I think about that day. Dr. Johnson says that telling my story will help, but how can I explain what it felt like to believe I'd lost my daughter, all because of one bad decision? I'm Mike, a 42-year-old accountant at a small firm in Denver, Colorado. My whole world revolves around one person, my 13-year-old daughter, Emma. Ever since her mom passed away from cancer 5 years ago, Emma has been my everything. Her blonde hair and blue eyes are a perfect reflection of my late wife. I know I became an overly protective dad. I'd time my day to the minute so I could pick her up from school right when the bell rang. I'd be waiting outside her classroom. When Emma wanted to go out with friends, I'd find an excuse to say no. I'd take her everywhere with me, except for work. I wouldn't even let her go down to the basement of our building to do laundry by herself. Everything was peaceful until Emma turned 12 and started pushing back. I'd wonder if I was hurting her, but then I'd think of my wife, and the fear of losing someone you love would take over. That fear tightened its grip every time Emma was out of my sight. And then, the worst happened on a weekend afternoon. Emma had been complaining all week about having to go to the grocery store with me instead of staying home to do homework. She was 13 now, not the little kid I could carry on my shoulders. As I was about to grab the car keys, I saw her sitting at the kitchen table, her math book open, a serious look on her face as she worked through a problem.
"Can't you just go by yourself?"
she asked, her voice full of hope. I was about to say no, but then I looked at her pleading eyes and knew I couldn't keep her locked away forever. Our apartment was on the second floor of a pretty quiet building.
Okay, I'll be back in 15 minutes,
I said, telling her again and again to call me if anything happened. She nodded and quickly went back to her homework. On the drive to the grocery store, which was just 3 blocks away, I kept checking my watch. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight they were sweating. Every minute that passed made me want to turn back. This was the first time in 5 years that I'd left Emma at home alone. At the grocery store, I grabbed what I needed and rushed through the aisles. As I was standing in the checkout line, my phone buzzed. It was Emma. I answered. Before I could say anything, a scream tore through the phone. Emma's sobbing and broken words were hard to understand.
"Dad, I don't know. I think someone shot a gun. I'm so scared."
"Are you hurt?"
I yelled into the phone, ignoring the curious stares of the people around me.
"There's so much blood."
"Dad!"
I immediately ran to my car and sped out of the parking lot, going twice the speed limit with only one thought in my head: get to Emma. 2 blocks from home, I saw the flashing lights of a police car in my rearview mirror. I could have pulled over, stopped, and explained, but all I could picture was Emma bleeding, so I hit the gas even harder. The police car chased me into our neighborhood, its sirens blaring. I took a sharp turn into the building's driveway, jumped out of the car, and put my hands up. 2 police officers got out of their cruiser, guns drawn.
"My daughter's in danger. I couldn't stop."
I yelled, my voice desperate. One of the officers, a middle-aged man, looked at me for a second and then asked,
Where are your keys?
"In the car. 2nd floor apartment."
Another officer held me at gunpoint while the middle-aged one ran up to our apartment. I stood there, hands still in the air, listening to his footsteps on the old wood floor, the sound of the door opening, and then muffled talking I couldn't make out. Finally, the officer led Emma downstairs. She was hugging a towel wrapped around her left arm, and the blood had soaked through. I wanted to run to her and hug her, but the police still had me held back. The middle-aged officer came over and told me my daughter only had a few scratches from broken glass and that she was not in danger. I told the officer about the gunshot Emma had heard. The officer said he would explain everything later. At the hospital, the doctor put 7 stitches in Emma's arm. While we were waiting, Emma told me what happened. She was at the kitchen table to get a glass of water. Suddenly, the glass exploded in her hand, sending shards of glass everywhere. At the same time, a loud bang came from the apartment next door, shaking our wall. When we got home, the 2 police officers were waiting for us to explain. It turns out our neighbor Fred had been arrested. He had been drinking and using drugs when he decided to clean his hunting rifle. He didn't check to see if there was a bullet in the chamber. The bullet went through the thin wall between our apartments and flew through our kitchen right where Emma had been standing. The sound wave from the gunshot made the glass in her hand shatter. The police told us that if the bullet had been just 8 inches to the side, it would have hit Emma. If she had been standing a little taller, it could have hit her in the head. Fred was charged with reckless endangerment and drug possession. He got 2 years of probation, mandatory drug rehab, and had all his guns taken away. I got a $500 ticket for evading a police officer, but the judge was sympathetic to my situation. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, I sat in the dark living room, replaying everything. I realized that no matter how much I tried to protect my daughter, danger could come from anywhere. But the most terrible part was realizing I had left her alone at the most dangerous moment. If I had stuck to my old routine, Emma wouldn't have been home when the bullet flew by. The first time I loosened my grip, disaster struck. In the weeks that followed, I became even more overprotective than before. I'd walk Emma all the way to her classroom door. I put a walkie-talkie in her backpack. I even installed security cameras in the apartment. Emma complained and cried, but I couldn't stop myself. Finally, my sister stepped in. She flew from Portland to Denver, sat me down, and told me I needed help. She said Emma needed a dad, not a prison guard, and that I was ruining both of our lives. That's why I'm here, in Dr. Johnson's office. It's been 3 months since the incident, and I still wake up every night, listening for every sound. I know Emma is growing up, and I can't protect her from the world forever. The fear will always be there, a shadow that follows me for the rest of my life. But maybe with help, I can learn to live with it instead of letting it control my life. Emma deserves a better dad than the one I'm being, and I'm going to try to be that person, no matter how long it takes. Over a decade ago, I was a college student on a tight budget. To make ends meet, I took on a few side gigs in addition to my part-time job. One of my favorites was house sitting and pet sitting. It was a good way to earn some extra cash. One time, a couple hired me to watch their house and their dog while they were on vacation. The gig was supposed to be for a little less than a week, but they offered to pay me for 2 weeks' worth of work. It was a great deal, and I couldn't pass it up. The house was amazing, but it was in a sketchy neighborhood known for break-ins and theft. I wasn't too worried, though. I figured as long as I kept the doors locked, I'd be fine. The first 4 nights were peaceful. I watched movies, took a bubble bath, and just enjoyed the nice house. The couple was scheduled to return on Thursday night, but while I was checking on their dog, they called to tell me their flight was delayed. They were going to stay in a hotel and come home the next morning. They asked if I could stay one more night, and I said yes. Then I called my dad to let him know, since I still lived with my parents. I was tired and went to bed early. I don't know how long I was asleep, but I woke up to the sound of breaking glass. I heard a loud crash, then what sounded like someone running in the hallway. The first thing I did was grab my phone and press the speed dial button for my dad. I hoped he would see the missed call and call me back. Then, I put the phone between the mattress and the headboard. If he did call, he'd be able to hear what was going on. Just then, a guy burst into the room. In the dim light, I could see him clearly. He had a knife in his hand. When he saw me, he raised the knife and started walking toward me. I need to mention that the break-ins in this area could get very violent. If you resisted or didn't cooperate, you could easily get seriously hurt or killed. I didn't have time to think. I just reacted. As he got closer, I kicked out with both feet, putting all my strength into it. I'm not a small guy. I'm over 6 feet tall and weigh more than 220 pounds. I've always been in good shape and worked out regularly when I wasn't in class or at work. The kick sent him flying backward into the wall. Luckily, the knife flew out of his hand too. Without hesitation, I rushed over, kneed him in the face, and then slammed his head against the wall. He fell to the floor, but then I heard the sound of a gun being cocked. I froze completely. Another guy was standing there, pointing a gun at my head. It was only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. I didn't dare move. He said something in broken English and told me to lie face down on the bed. I did exactly what he said. He threw a blanket over me. I curled up, hugging the wall, trying to shield my body with my arms and legs just in case. By this point, I had forgotten all about calling my dad. The guy I had kicked was still on the floor. A third guy walked into the room. They were talking to each other in a language that sounded like Portuguese. I didn't understand it, but I recognized it from a trip I'd taken to Mozambique, where the language is common. One guy helped the injured one, and the other started stuffing things into a bag. Suddenly, I heard a car screech to a halt outside. Then someone started yelling. It was my dad. The 3 guys inside the house panicked. They bolted out the back door and tried to climb over the fence. My dad started shooting. I'm pretty sure he was trying to miss on purpose. He could have easily hit them if he wanted to. When I got outside, my dad called the police. By the time they arrived, I had calmed down a bit. I went looking for the couple's dog. I couldn't find it anywhere. I borrowed my dad's flashlight and went into the backyard. In the corner of the yard, I saw him lying motionless. My heart sank when I realized he was dead. The police later confirmed that the dog had been poisoned. The thieves must have done it to get into the house without a problem. I cried for the dog and felt a deep sense of anger. The next morning, the couple returned. When the police and I told them what had happened, they were in shock. The wife burst into tears when she saw her dog. Her husband held her and was shaking with a mix of anger and grief. Watching them kneel beside the dog, my heart ached. I felt a pang of guilt, even though I knew I had done everything I could. About 7 or 8 months later, a detective called me. They had caught the guys and needed me to identify them. I told him I didn't get a good look at their faces in the dark, and after the gun was pointed at me, I was hiding under the blanket and didn't see anything. He said they had fingerprints and wanted to show me the evidence first. When I got to the police station, it wasn't like in the movies. There was no one-way glass or hidden room. They brought the 3 men in, and they glared at me with pure hate in their eyes. The ringleader's name was Sambo. His gaze was the most chilling thing I have ever seen. After we left the room, the detective gave me his file. I was stunned. He had 4 counts of murder, nearly 10 counts of attempted murder, multiple aggravated assault charges, assaults on women, and over 100 counts of theft and breaking and entering. The officer told me that if I hadn't acted so fast that night, the outcome could have been very different. A few days later, I got a call from the detective. Somehow, Sambo had escaped from prison. The detective advised me to be careful, but I wasn't too worried. The incident didn't happen at my home, and I had a different car, so it would be hard for him to find me. Plus, I had my license and always carried a gun with me. Even though it has been many years, I'll never forget that night. It taught me that sometimes a few seconds of pure instinct can change your life, and that a father's love can save you from the worst. I've got no clue how long I've been stuck here. In this pitch black hell, time just stopped. All I remember was heading home from the gym. I got into my car, and boom, this shadowy figure came out of nowhere. Before I even had a chance to react, someone grabbed me from behind. They slammed a towel over my face, reeked of chemicals, and that was it. Everything went dark, and now, still darkness. My head was spinning like I'd been hit with a brick. I tried to move, but there's barely any space. My hands reached up, felt wood. I stretched out to the sides, more wood. Reality started to sink in. I was lying in a freaking wooden box. Help! Somebody help me! I screamed, pounding the lid with everything I had. Nothing. Just this dull thud and something shifting. And then it hit me. They were burying me. Oh my God. They were burying me alive. Please. I'm Violet. My family's loaded. They'll pay whatever you want. Just don't do this. Listen, Violet. You've got 7 days. If your family doesn't pay up, you die in that box. You've got food, water, a blanket, and a flashlight. There's a tube to breathe through. If it rains, the pump will drain the water. I lost it, screaming, crying, begging, but all I got back was silence. My hands were trembling like crazy as I fumbled around for the flashlight. Finally found it. I flipped it on. The light stung my eyes. I squinted, trying to take in where I really was. The wooden box was rough, just big enough for me to lie down, barely stretch out. There was a bottle of water, a couple of protein bars, a thin-ass blanket, and a piece of paper. 7 days. If the family doesn't pay $5 million, you will be forgotten. Don't waste water and food. I thought about my parents. God, they must be freaking out. I'm their only kid. $5 million's a ton of money, but I knew they'd do whatever it took. The real question was, would they find me in time? I shut off the flashlight to save battery. No clue how long I laid there, but the air was getting heavy. Every breath felt tighter than the last. My sweat was turning sour, and the heat inside the box was climbing like crazy. I held it in for as long as I could, but eventually, I lost. I ended up peeing in the corner of the damn box. I stared at the water bottle. My throat was sandpaper dry, but I hesitated. What if it was poisoned? Tried counting numbers to stay calm. Got to... I don't even remember. I lost track. My body started slipping into this weird, restless sleep. Then suddenly I was back in my bedroom. Warm sunlight spilling through the curtains, the smell of pancakes drifting up from the kitchen. But then that cold, damp feeling yanked me back to reality. I woke up. Just darkness. Thick and heavy. The smell of sweat and piss was everywhere. Thirst clawed at my throat. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the bottle, took a tiny sip. The cool water hit my throat like some kind of miracle, but I didn't dare drink more than that. Just one sip. I was starving. I started talking to myself. Come on, Violet. You gotta make it through this. You're only 17. You've got your whole life ahead of you. But then this other voice kicked in. You're gonna die here, in the dark, alone, forgotten. I flipped on the flashlight just to check that I was still breathing, that this wasn't some god-awful nightmare I'd wake up from. The beam lit up the scratch marks I'd made on the side of the coffin, wild, panicked clawing from the first night. The temperature kept swinging like crazy. The heat came in waves, making me sweat like crazy, and then suddenly it'd drop and I'd be shivering in that damn thin blanket. The smell in the box was unbearable now. I tried breathing through my mouth to escape the stench, but then I panicked. What if I was using up more oxygen? Everything started to blur together. I remembered stuff I'd never paid attention to before. The scent of Mom's perfume, the way Dad laughed at his own dumb jokes, tiny little pieces of life I never thought I'd miss. Please. Please don't let me die in here. Nothing. No reply. It must have been 3 days, maybe more. Hunger tore at my gut like an animal. Thirst made my mouth feel like it was cracking open, tongue swollen, stuck to the roof of my mouth. And the exhaustion, God, it was like my body was slowly shutting down, cell by cell. Sleep became the enemy. I couldn't let myself go under for too long. Every time my heavy eyelids slid shut and opened again, that same panic hit me. What if I used up all the oxygen? What if I drifted off and never woke up? I tried pushing against the lid with everything I had left. Nothing. It wouldn't budge. I clawed at the sides of the box till my fingernails cracked and bled. That tiny box was making me lose my mind. I couldn't sit up, couldn't stretch out. Every inch of my body screamed from lying in the same damn position for so long. Someone, please, I croaked. But no more tears came. I was completely dried out, inside and out. That's when hope started slipping. Maybe my family couldn't pay. Maybe they couldn't find me in time. Maybe this was where I'd die. Would it hurt? Or would it feel like just falling asleep? I had no idea how long I drifted in and out like that, half conscious, half delirious. Time didn't mean anything anymore. Everything melted into one big mess in my head. Then, a sound. From above. Was it real? Was I hallucinating again? I froze, listening, digging, metal hitting rock, footsteps, voices, urgent, panicked. It was getting louder. Someone was digging. "Here! I'm here!" I tried to yell, but it came out like a dry whisper. "Help me!" I slammed the lid with the last bit of strength I had, and then light, blinding, painful, but the most beautiful damn thing I'd ever seen. The lid flew open, faces leaned over me, people shouting over each other. "She's alive! Get an ambulance!" They pulled me out of the box. Fresh air hit my lungs like a punch. I coughed hard, gasping, choking on it. Someone threw a blanket over me. There were flashing lights everywhere, cop cars, voices shouting. Next thing I knew, I was in the back of an ambulance. When we got to the hospital, the doctors couldn't believe I was still alive. 83 hours buried underground. I'd lost over 20 pounds. My body was wrecked from dehydration, but weirdly, my mind felt clear. Like something deep inside me had dragged me back from the edge. In the days that followed, everything started coming together. Turns out, they were part of a crew that kidnapped rich kids. They'd been watching me for weeks, following my routine, waiting for the right moment. The box had been buried in the middle of nowhere, out in some remote wooded area, 18 miles from the city. If it hadn't been for a random witness who spotted their sketchy car, I wouldn't be here right now. After that whole nightmare, even the tiniest space made me panic. Darkness wasn't just darkness anymore. It stuck with me, like this shadow I couldn't shake. But still, that experience changed me. I stopped taking things for granted. Every single breath of air, every sliver of sunlight, every second I got to spend with my family, it all became priceless.
The dust on the window has the shape of a human face. My family moved to the new house when I was 7 years old. The house was spacious with 3 bedrooms. My parents said I could choose to sleep with them if I wanted, but at that time, I always followed my 12-year-old brother in everything. Sleeping alone was no exception. I confidently said that I wanted to sleep by myself. It had to be the room on the first floor because it had a window facing the backyard, just like my brother's room. Life in the new house was very happy. My family held a housewarming party and invited relatives and neighbors to attend. The only thing I hated about this house was that it had a lot of dust. Seeing the toys covered in a layer of white dust made me uncomfortable and irritable. The window facing the backyard in my room was the most unfortunate victim of this problem. The glass on the window would gather dust within a few short days, and for some reason, it always had random streaks on it. To make it easier to imagine, it was like sand art, but here it was dust, and the specific author of that ugly work was unknown. I think at that time I had fallen victim to pareidolia. This is a psychological phenomenon that causes people to see familiar shapes in random objects. For example, seeing faces in clouds or animal shapes in stains. This phenomenon is quite common and usually harmless, but for me, it was a serious issue. I always saw someone's face through the dust on the window, though it was unclear if it was the vivid imagination of a 7-year-old at that time. But instead of being fascinated, I was very scared. I asked my parents to clean the window glass thoroughly every day before I went to bed. Gradually, the human faces in the dust began to appear on nearly all the windows in the house, from the kitchen to the living room. Strangely, I was the only one who saw it as a human face. My parents and brother did not. One night, I groggily woke up feeling suffocated. In the dim light from the night lamp, I saw the fierce face of a man. He was using his strong arms and muscular body to pin me down, a 7-year-old child whom the doctor said was even suffering from level 1 malnutrition. I immediately screamed and thrashed instinctively, pounding my arms and legs against the bed and throwing everything within reach at the man. In a split second, I realized that his face was identical to the face on the window. "Rick! Rick!" My parents called out to me in a panic, accompanied by the sound of hurried footsteps. Immediately, feeling my body released, I gasped for air, desperately filling my lungs with oxygen. A few seconds later, my bedroom door burst open, and my parents and brother rushed in. My mom hugged me tightly, while my dad and brother stood in shock, staring at the mess in the room. I told them everything that had just happened, emphasizing that the human face on the window was real. The police arrived at my house 15 minutes later. They searched continuously until nearly noon the next day, but they still couldn't find the man I had described. After that night, my parents moved me to the second floor to sleep with my brother. My parents had many cameras and alarm lights installed around the house and drove my brother and me to school instead of letting us take the bus as usual. I felt lucky and grateful that my parents believed and listened to what I said, even though I was only 7 years old at the time. A few months later, the police investigation came to a halt due to a lack of results. But my mental state worsened, and my frail condition became alarming. That summer, when I finished the school year, my parents planned to move to a new house. My mom said that my dad and she would do everything to give my brother and me the most peaceful and fulfilling childhood possible. 25 years have passed, and now my life is very fulfilling. I have a good job and will be marrying my longtime girlfriend next month. Yesterday, while looking through the old photo album, which had been stored away for a long time and overlooked by everyone, in a family photo taken during the housewarming of that year, a man was pressing his face against the living room window. He had a faint smile and wide open eyes, as if he were staring directly at me.
I never thought my chill life would one day take such a terrifying turn. It was this gloomy fall day. My parents were out at some conference, and I was home alone, way out near the woods. That evening, I swung by the closest gas station after hanging out at my best friend's place. The dim neon lights made the place feel creepy. There was a guy standing by the gas station while I was filling up my car, his face hidden under a low baseball cap. He had on a bulky, dull brown coat, and I could feel his eyes on me the whole time. As I snapped the gas cap shut, the guy walked up and asked how to get to the interstate. His voice was low, not really threatening, but definitely not friendly either. I gave him directions, being polite but quick about it. As I turned to head out, a chill ran down my spine. Driving home, I noticed a car behind me, its headlights way closer than usual. At first, I figured it was just another car going the same way, but every time I sped up or slowed down, it kept the same exact distance. When I turned onto the dirt road toward home, the car suddenly stopped and its headlights went out. I glanced in the rearview mirror, but all I could see was darkness swallowing everything up. I tried telling myself I was just being paranoid, but the feeling wouldn't go away. That night, in the quiet house, I heard this soft voice, like a whisper on the breeze, calling my name from outside the window. When I looked out, there was nothing but darkness and the trees swaying in the wind. The next day, it got even worse. When I went out to grab something from the car, I could feel a figure hanging back behind the garage wall. I called the police, and when they showed up, they went around with their flashlights, checking the woods and the backyard. But they didn't find anything. One of them told me to stay calm and keep my phone on me, but the look in his eyes said he thought I was making it all up. I knew what I heard was real. Another night, after getting back from work, I heard footsteps crunching on dry leaves and this slow, heavy breathing. I didn't look back. I just bolted straight for the door. But once again, he was gone, like he was never there to begin with. I called my parents, and they told me to go crash at a friend's place until they got back. But stepping out right now felt like asking for trouble. I decided to stay home for the night and pack up so I could head to a friend's house first thing in the morning. As I got out of the car and went into the house, the fear from the past few days hit me all over again. Out of nowhere, someone rushed at me from behind. All I could make out were these cold eyes behind a mask. He yanked my arm hard, and I could feel his hot breath on my neck. Then I felt a sharp pain in my back, like something had stabbed me. In a total panic, I swung my bag as hard as I could and smashed it into his face. It threw him off just long enough for me to jump into the car and lock the doors. I slammed on the gas, my heart racing, so fast I thought it might explode. When I got to my friend's place, I called the police, and they showed up about 10 minutes later at both spots, my house and my friend's. They checked everything around both places, but didn't find a single trace of the guy. It was like he'd vanished into thin air, like he was never even there. For the next few days, I was on edge about everything. Every tiny noise made me jump. What kept me up at night, what wouldn't let me relax, was the one question I couldn't answer. Who was he, and why did he come after me? The fear and the constant feeling of being watched were like a heavy weight I couldn't shake in the days that followed. The police still didn't find a single trace of the guy, and all they could say was that maybe I imagined it all because of stress. But I knew what happened was real. I kept hoping my parents would get back soon so I could stop living like this. But then they texted saying something came up at work, and they couldn't come home as planned. I didn't have any other options, so I decided to go back home. That night, while I was in the kitchen, I heard footsteps coming from the attic. I grabbed a kitchen knife and slowly made my way up the stairs. Using my phone flashlight, I swept the attic with the beam. At first, everything looked normal until I saw a dirty mattress, empty food containers, and photos of me taken without me knowing. There were pictures of me at the gas station, on the drive home, and even in my bedroom. I turned around, and there he was. Before I could even react, he came charging at me. In a total panic, I swung the knife. He went down, breathing weakly, then just stopped. I bolted out of the house, called the police, and stood there crying, shaking, and scared out of my mind, with blood all over my hands. When the police got there, they found out he was a wanted criminal who'd been on the run for the past 3 months and had probably been hiding out in my house the whole time. It hit me. He'd been watching me this entire time. It was horrifying, and I completely broke down, sobbing. But what sent chills down my spine even more was when the police checked his phone. They found a video of him talking to my parents. In the video, My parents were standing there with him at the gas station, having a full-on conversation. At first, it looked like they were just talking to some random guy, but then my dad handed him a wad of cash and a map, and then my mom's voice came through, cold and sharp. "Here's the key. Get it done quickly and cleanly." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could they do this? I started shaking, feeling like my whole world just fell apart. The police took all the evidence right away, but they wouldn't say anything about it yet. I begged them to dig deeper. A few days later, they uncovered something absolutely horrifying. My parents were drowning in debt. The guy they hired wasn't just some random criminal. He was a pro, a hitman who'd done cleanup jobs for cash. I wasn't just a random target. He came after me because I was their daughter. It felt like my parents saw me as nothing but a burden, and the life insurance money from me was their way out of debt. That truth cut deeper than anything. The people I trusted and loved the most had turned me into prey. The police started digging deeper into the case, but my parents were gone, just disappeared without a trace. I was left alone with an empty house and the kind of nightmare that sticks with me forever. When it all came out, it shattered me. It felt like every piece of my broken heart was slicing into my soul, leaving a pain I couldn't shake. I used to believe that no matter what, even if the whole world turned its back on me, my parents would always be my safe place. But they were the ones who threw me into hell. I kept asking myself, how could the people who gave me life be so heartless? I packed up whatever I could and walked away from that house, from my past. But the fear didn't go anywhere. Even in the middle of a crowded street in a city where nobody knows me, I still feel it. That invisible gaze, like someone is watching me, making every breath catch in my throat. Every night, I push a chair against the door and keep a knife under my pillow. I don't sleep to rest. I sleep to survive, stuck in a nightmare that never lets go.
I'm Orla, 29 years old, living in Houston. I have a happy life because I enjoy my work and have extra income. Currently, I live alone in a spacious and cozy house. My house is in a somewhat secluded area of the neighborhood, but that's okay because I like peace and privacy. The neighbors around here aren't very friendly, to say the least. They're somewhat peculiar. I choose not to pay them any mind. They're not relevant to me, after all. On that evening, like any other day, I returned home at 6 p.m. After dinner and a shower, I went to bed at 10 p.m., starting to enjoy what I consider the best time of the day. I got into bed, lying comfortably with a book I was halfway through. I called Milo, my cat whom I've had for 2 years. Usually when Milo hears me call, he happily runs over and lies next to me. But this time he curled up, staring ahead. I looked at Milo and chuckled, thinking he must be full and feeling lazy. I started reading and forgot about Milo's odd behavior. After a while, feeling tired, I changed position, inadvertently noticing that Milo was still lying there, staring under the bed. I approached, picked up Milo, and returned to bed. I placed Milo on my stomach, his favorite lying position. Surprisingly, he fluffed up, emitting little grunts as if being vigilant and uncomfortable with me. Milo jumped off the bed, returning to his previous spot. I sat on the bed, puzzled by his strange behavior. Following Milo's gaze, he was indeed looking under the bed. I started feeling uneasy. I couldn't bring myself to look under the bed, and I didn't know why. Looking around the room, my heart seemed to stop when I inadvertently glanced at the mirror in the corner. The mirror coincidentally reflected a bit under the bed, where a dark figure, seemingly a man, was present. I couldn't see his face clearly, just his glaring white, wild eyes staring out. I was truly panicked. I bit my lip, trying not to make any unusual noise. I told myself to stay calm, trying to act like I didn't know anything. Otherwise, he might lose control, and I would be in terrible danger. I tried to breathe, regulate my heartbeat, then observe the room to figure out a solution. The first thing I wanted to do was call the police, but my phone was charging and placed on a table 3 meters away from the bed. My body trembled. I wasn't sure if I could get off the bed, but at that moment, I had no choice but to take a risk. I couldn't sit here in panic forever. Slowly, I stepped off of the bed, trying to straighten up, pretending I was very comfortable. Approaching the phone, I trembled, trying to dial the police number. I struggled for a while, my brain unable to control my body. Finally, I managed to call the police, but I wasn't calm enough and accidentally turned on the speaker. 911, what's your emergency? I immediately hung up, standing rooted to the ground, squeezing the phone tightly as if trying to break it. It felt like I hadn't breathed for 3 minutes. After seeing no reaction from the man, I immediately texted my best friend to call the police for me. Suddenly, I heard a metallic clash, like a knife scraping under the floor. I sent the message and quickly turned off the phone. I mentally prepared for what would happen next. When I turned back, I panicked to see Milo playing with a small knife under the bed. In an instant, I rushed to pick up Milo and grab the knife, then ran out and slammed the door shut. I stood staring at the door, breathing heavily. It felt like leaving the bedroom gave me enough oxygen to breathe. I hugged Milo tightly, my hands trembling, pointing the knife straight towards the door. I was sure the next thing would be banging on the door, cursing, and a madman rushing out. I was ready to resist at any cost. But I didn't hear any noise. Everything was eerily silent. I couldn't know what the man really wanted. How he managed to break into my house and hide under my bed for how long. Whether he would suddenly appear here and end my life. Suddenly, the sound of police sirens rang out, and I hugged Milo tightly, running out quickly. When I met the police and told them everything that had just happened, I felt relieved. After the police searched my bedroom and all the other nooks and crannies in the house, the truly horrifying thing appeared. They found the body of a dead man under my bed. I was stunned to realize it was Robert, the creepy neighbor. Robert lived alone opposite my house, a man over 50 years old. Robert had repeatedly accosted me to spend the night with him. I overlooked it, thinking he had mental issues, until I lost patience and threatened to call the police. Robert stopped his creepy antics. After the investigation, the police said Robert died of a sudden stroke. He had been dead for about 12 hours, which was the time I was away on a business trip and hadn't returned home. It was horrifying to imagine how he would have acted if I had been home at that time. I redesigned my house with the bedroom in a different location and started using a mattress directly on the floor instead of a bed. Until now, the image of Robert with his glaring, wild white eyes still deeply haunts me.
Gray is a cool, classy man who's got it all together. He's crashing at some fancy hotel with his hot young girlfriend. They've been a thing for like 2 years now. I'm so over this, Gray. I want a wedding everyone's gonna be jealous of, Gray's girlfriend whines. I've still got a ton of legal stuff to deal with my wife. Plus, I want to be there for my 2 boys, Gray says. The girlfriend's always bugging Gray for being his official wife. Gray's always acting like he's this big family guy, but he's constantly coming up with excuses to keep his girl happy on the side. That's it. The girlfriend grabs her phone, ready to call Gray's wife and stir things up. The two get into it, and things totally blow up. We're done, Gray says, all cold and serious. He opens the door and walks out, looking totally wiped. Gray grabs a cab to head home. He's trying to figure out what to tell his wife about getting home so late. When Gray looks back, the familiar city street turns into some random, empty road by the edge of the woods. You sure this road goes to the place I'm trying to get to? Gray asks, all worried. Chill out, this is a shortcut, the driver says. sounding pretty cold. Gray notices the driver keeps staring at him in the rearview mirror. His rough face and beard totally freak Gray out. 5 minutes later, the car is totally silent, and it's giving him the creeps. From the driver's cold stare to the empty road getting even quieter, Gray starts feeling more and more uneasy. Why'd he pick this road? A thought pops up, and then he feels a wave of anxiety. The driver suddenly slams on the brakes, gets out to make a call, and Gray's just sitting there all confused. Gray rolls down the window to listen in. "The stuff's here. When are you gonna be here? I don't have all day," the driver says, kinda annoyed. Gray's sitting in the car, trying to make sense of everything, but he's freaking out. What the heck is he even talking about? How he talks about goods makes Gray realize he may be in serious trouble. Am I the goods? The question keeps popping up in his head, freaking him out. He's about to dip, but then he realizes the car door's locked, which makes Gray even more sure he's right. Gray's heart's racing. Panic's creeping in. But at the same time, his survival instinct kicks in big time. Out of nowhere, Gray spots this small, pale yellow thing on the car floor. It is the driver's license. He looks at the photo in the car, and it definitely doesn't look like the driver. Right then, Gray's 100% sure he's the thing the driver was talking about. "I gotta figure out how to get out of here," Gray mutters, and right then, the driver comes back to the car. Gray's freaking out, torn between wanting to escape this mess no matter what, and being scared of what he might have to do next. The second the driver gets in, Gray grabs the pen from his shirt and starts jabbing him in the neck. Once he's sure the driver's out cold, Gray grins like a maniac, showing off his red teeth. "This feels awesome." The rush of taking the driver out totally takes over. Gray isn't the classy, successful guy he used to be anymore. After struggling for a bit to drag the driver's body to the back seat, Gray's about to drive off when a car comes flying at him from the other way. Two guys, all dusty and rough-looking, step out of the car. "Come on, bring this stuff over here," one of them yells. Gray figures this is the driver's deal. After a few seconds of thinking it over, Gray just goes for it and plays the driver. "In the trunk, hurry up." A guy quickly walks up, pops open the trunk, and inside is the body of a moose, a pretty rare animal. Gray gets it now. He looks at the two guys with a blank stare, slowly pulling out that pen from earlier. While the other guy's checking out the surroundings, he spots a dark shadow inside the car. "How the hell would a fourth person know about this?" he grumbles, walking over to open the door. The empty road by the forest suddenly fills with loud, scary screams. About 20 minutes later, Gray drives off in the two guys' car, leaving the taxi with 3 bodies crammed inside. It's almost 3 a.m., and Gray's speeding down the street like it's no big deal. He's in a daze, heart racing, foot slammed on the gas, just laughing like a maniac, all pumped up. After 2 days on the run, Gray gets busted by the police while he's just stopping at a convenience store to grab something. "You're under arrest for murder, Mr. Taylor." But the victim the police are talking about isn't the 3 guys dealing in rare animals. It is Gray's girlfriend. So that night, Gray ended up taking 4 lives. When they arrest him, facing the cops, Gray doesn't feel scared like he did before. Instead, a little grin shows up on his face, like he's loving the end of a game he totally nailed. From being scared and freaked out, he slowly starts feeling good, like a rush, enjoying making someone stop breathing. He doesn't care about regret or what happens next. To him, it is all just a game, and he is the one calling the shots. The crazy villain gets slapped with a life sentence,
and no chance of parole.
I'm Chasey. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings, and my little sister Lauren is 8. This is the unforgettable story of me and my sister's crazy and scary Christmas Eve last year. My family wasn't like those TV families with a Christmas tree loaded with presents or a cozy dinner by the fire. My dad worked hard, but we were still struggling with money. My mom, who was really my stepmom, drank a lot and barely cared about us. That Christmas Eve, my dad drove 3 hours to work. My stepmom got drunk and passed out in the afternoon, leaving us to take care of ourselves. I still wanted to make a good memory for Lauren. I'd saved up some money from my part-time job to buy Lauren a little gift, a dog keychain she really liked. When I gave her the gift, Lauren's eyes lit up, and her big smile made me feel like all the effort was totally worth it. Lauren surprised me even more. She gave me a handmade card with a thank you note and cute little drawings. A weird, warm feeling spread through my heart. We sat next to each other, all curled up in a big blanket, eating popcorn and watching Christmas shows on the old TV. Everything felt calm and happy. But then, there was a sudden knock at the door. Lauren jumped up and yelled, "It's gotta be Dad!" and ran toward the door without thinking, but I quickly pulled her back. Before he left, Dad had told me real seriously, "Don't open the door to anyone, especially on Christmas Eve. That's when bad guys can take advantage of things." Lauren still wouldn't listen and kept trying to run to the door. She looked through the peephole and shouted, "It's Santa Claus!" "Chasey, open the door!" But I felt a sense of unease rising in my heart. I looked through the peephole and saw a guy in a red suit and a Santa hat. But the look in his eyes was nothing like I'd imagine a nice Santa would have. His cold stare at the door made my skin crawl. I pulled Lauren away from the door, trying to sound firm. "You can't open the door. That's not Dad, and it's definitely not Santa." The guy outside started using a sweet voice, saying he just wanted to give us presents. But I wasn't fooled. I yelled through the door, telling him to leave. Instead of giving up, he got even more patient. The knocking got louder, more regular, and kept going. He pulled some stuff out of his pocket and started messing with the lock. My heart was pounding, and Lauren was shaking as she clung to me. I pulled Lauren over to the landline to call my dad, but the phone was dead, and my sisters and I just got more and more freaked out. At this point, I decided to call 911, but the operator didn't believe me and thought we were just messing around. I felt totally helpless and hopeless. Meanwhile, Lauren ran upstairs to wake up her stepmom, but nothing could get her to wake up. Lauren ran back down, hugged me, and then just broke down in tears. Outside, the sound of the door being broken down kept getting louder, and the creepy guy's laugh sounded like he was enjoying watching my sisters and me freak out. I had to come up with a way to fix this situation. I looked around the living room and stopped when I saw the smoke alarm on the ceiling. An idea popped into my head. I decided to create an emergency so the fire department would come and help us. I grabbed a roll of tissue, lit a small candle, and held it up to the smoke alarm. The fire alarm went off loud, and about 10 minutes later, I heard the fire truck siren. We sighed in relief when we saw the headlights shining through the window. But what was even crazier was the guy outside the door suddenly yelling really loud. He said he was our dad, pretending to be Santa Claus, but got stuck outside. His voice came through urgently, asking the firefighters to break down the door. The fear that hadn't completely gone away hit me even harder. My hands were freezing, but the worry about my sister's safety and mine made me feel stronger than ever. I knew that right then, I had to act fast. I remembered the family photo hanging on the wall in the living room. I quickly grabbed the photo, ran out, and cracked the door open, holding it up with shaky hands. I told the firefighters everything that happened. The guy outside wasn't my dad. He was a scammer who'd tricked us and was trying to break down the door. When the firefighters gave him suspicious looks, the creep immediately turned to run but got held back. The police were called right away, and the guy was quickly restrained. Once the situation was settled, the firefighters called my dad's work to let him know about the emergency. My dad came straight home that night. When he found out what happened, he was really mad. He and my stepmom got into a huge argument and then decided to get a divorce. My dad said that me and my sisters were the most important things in the world. My dad also switched jobs so he could spend more time taking care of us. That Christmas Eve was super scary, but it also made me realize how much power and responsibility I have as the oldest sister. And most importantly, it brought a change to my family, a new start to a better life, one without fear or lack of love. I never thought a regular afternoon could flip into a total nightmare. Last summer, I was in Boston with my best friend Ray, his dad, and Ray's sister, Carly. We were heading to Fenway Park to catch a Red Sox game. Before the game, everyone decided to grab lunch at Popeyes. The place was packed, laughter everywhere, the smell of hot fried chicken in the air, and fans hyped up for the game. We sat down, ordered, and just soaked in the energy, totally unaware that things were about to take a dark turn. A guy walked in. Nothing really stood out about him, just an old t-shirt, jeans, and a worn-out baseball cap. But something about him felt off. He ordered his food and picked a seat in the corner, right where he had the best view of Carly. I didn't really pay much attention to him at first, until I noticed his eyes never left Carly. He was eating so slow, one bite at a time, like he was dragging it out just to keep staring at her. At first, I thought maybe I was just overthinking it. But then Carly started looking uncomfortable too. She kept her head down, focused on her food, trying to avoid his gaze. But he didn't look away. 5 minutes passed and he was still staring. No shame, no attempt to hide it. Ray and his dad didn't seem to notice, but that uneasy feeling in my gut kept getting worse. Carly got up, mumbling something about needing the bathroom. Instinctively, I glanced at the guy. Almost immediately, he stood up too. His tray of food was barely touched. He was following her. I got this weird chill, grabbed Ray's arm, and muttered, "That guy just followed Carly into the bathroom. Did you see that?" Ray frowned for a second, then laughed it off. Maybe he just had to go too. But my gut was telling me something was off, and I was right. Minutes passed, then 10, then 15. Carly still hadn't come back. Ray's dad was starting to get annoyed. "Where is she? Does she really need that much time?" Ray and I exchanged a look. Neither of us said a word, but we both felt it. Something was wrong. We decided to check. The door to the women's bathroom was slightly open. We stopped outside, and Ray called Carly's name. No answer. A Popeyes employee, a woman, walked in to take a look. Then she turned back to us, looking confused. "There's no one in there." No one? Carly was gone, and so was that guy. We bolted outside, scanning the parking lot. A silver truck peeled out way faster than normal. I caught a glimpse of someone in the back seat, but it was too far to tell if it was Carly. Ray's dad didn't waste a second. He called 911. The police showed up fast, but there wasn't much to go on. They checked the security cameras, but just our luck, the one behind Popeyes had been busted for days. No footage. 3 days went by. Still nothing. The police tracked down the truck's plates, but the owner had an accomplice and refused to say where Carly was being kept. Ray's dad was losing it, barely slept, kept blowing up the police's phones, checking out every sketchy place he could think of. Ray and I couldn't just sit around doing nothing. We went to the area where the truck was last spotted, asking people if they'd seen anything. A homeless guy remembered seeing Carly being forced into the truck. That gave the police a better idea of where to look. By the morning of day 4, the police found a phone tossed in an alley near Popeyes. It was Carly's. When they opened it, the last message she had typed out was, "He's standing right in front of the door. I'm scared." The police kept digging, tracking down a partial plate number a witness had remembered. Turns out, the truck belonged to a guy who had already done time for kidnapping a minor. He'd gotten out a few years ago. When the police raided this abandoned house, they didn't just find Carly. One of the walls in a dark room was covered in photos, not just of her, but of other girls. Some of the pictures were old, edges curled and faded, like they'd been there for years. A young officer flipped open a file on the desk, his face going dark. "We're dealing with a serial predator." Carly sat frozen in the corner, her eyes empty. But the thing that shook everyone the most was the girl lying next to her, still, lifeless, cold. One of the officers checked her wrist, then just shook his head. Carly stared at the body beside her, then whispered, "He said he'd come back." The police were in full force, hunting down the kidnapper, determined not to let him take another victim. Carly made it out, but she wasn't the same. Her eyes were always full of fear. She barely slept. The nightmares never stopped. She wasn't the carefree girl she used to be, and sometimes, even in a crowded place, she could still feel it, someone watching her. But in the end, Carly was luckier than so many others. She was found. She got to go home. With the love and support around her, I believe she'll find a way to heal. I am Richard, 43 years old. I have a happy family with a wife, a 17-year-old daughter, and a 6-year-old son. We moved to our current home a few months ago, in the Heights neighborhood of Houston. This is the result of many years of hard work by my wife and me. We cleaned the house together with happiness, but trouble found us on the very first night here. My wife and I were sleeping when we were disturbed by noise from the neighbor's house. We tried to ignore it to sleep. My wife could sleep, but I was nearly awake all night. The next morning, I asked my 2 children about the sounds from the night before. They also heard it. My wife said to stay calm because we had just moved in and didn't want to get into trouble. It totally made sense, so I listened to her. In the first days of the new house, everything went smoothly. We could go to work closer. The children quickly got used to their school and new friends. After we finished dinner, everyone would have their own space. Suddenly, my wife's loud scream startled us all. I quickly dashed upstairs and opened the bedroom door. My oldest daughter was standing by the window, trembling and looking outside. I approached and realized it was the corpse of a black cat, hanging from the branch of a tree next to the window. It was heavily decomposed and smelled terrible. I quickly handled the cat's remains, thinking this was some sort of nasty prank. I warned everyone to be more careful, and I would keep an eye on the security of the house. For many nights afterward, my wife and I were continually disturbed by noises at night. The next morning, I immediately ran over to the neighbor's house to talk. I noticed the gate was unlocked, but still politely rang the bell. After several attempts with no response, I decided to step into the yard. After taking a few steps, I instantly covered my nose with my hand. The deeper I went, the stronger the smell became. Finally, I was stunned when I saw the tree in front of the house hanging with the corpses of black cats, some decomposed, others appearing freshly hung. Could the black cat hanging at my bedroom window yesterday be related to this? I noticed the front door was open, so I approached and called out loudly, but still received no reply. I slowly moved closer to the door, and I could see the inside of the house was very messy. Hanging from the ceiling were wooden crosses inverted, painted red with incomprehensible symbols. With my understanding, I guessed that the homeowner was likely involved in some sort of occult ritual. From behind me, a man's voice boomed, "What are you doing in my house?" I greeted him politely and introduced myself, saying my family had just moved in. He just stood there staring at me without saying anything. I was losing my patience and told him I would report him to the police. He remained standing there with a challenging smile. I returned home feeling extremely weirded out. My day had been ruined since I encountered that bizarre neighbor. I told my wife everything I had seen at that man's house. She didn't want the children to be influenced or know about those occult things, We decided to call the police. About 15 minutes later, I went to the neighbor's house with the police. But this time, when he saw me and the police, he transformed into a completely different person, very polite and friendly. He happily shook hands and introduced himself to the police as Louis, currently living alone. When the police requested to search the house, he immediately agreed. Oddly, the house was entirely normal and clean. I couldn't believe my eyes. Just 20 minutes ago, everything was very strange. The police thought there was a slight misunderstanding between me and the neighbor, advising us to reconcile. That evening, I told my wife and children to avoid interacting with the neighbor. I emphasized that everyone needed to be careful locking the windows before sleeping. The family atmosphere became tense. I encouraged my wife and children that everything would be all right. The next morning, I woke up slightly later than usual. When I went down to the dining room, I received a wary and fearful look from my daughter. I proactively approached her and asked how she was. Immediately, she yelled for me to stay away and quickly grabbed her backpack to leave the house. My wife and son stared at me. I didn't understand why she was acting like that. That night, she didn't come home but called my wife, saying she would sleep at her friend's house. I tried texting and calling, but she didn't respond. Sitting alone in the living room, I tried to recall everything to see if I had overlooked any events that led to my daughter's condition. Suddenly, my son appeared right behind me, startling me. He looked very angry, staring at me with some sinister intention. Before I could finish my question, he unexpectedly raised a knife high. I yelled loudly, jumped up, and rushed away. When I looked back, he had run out the door. My wife, hearing my screams, rushed over with a terrified expression. I recounted what I had just witnessed, but she insisted I had been dreaming. She said she had been with our son in the room. My son was having trouble sleeping, so he wanted his mother to read him a story. We rushed upstairs and found our son sleeping soundly. I believed what my wife said, but I also trusted what I witnessed from earlier. We returned to our bedroom to rest. The next day, my daughter came home late in the afternoon, still avoiding my gaze and all my questions. She said she only wanted to see her mother and little brother. I helplessly walked away. My wife went to the room with our daughter while I went downstairs. Just as I got to the bottom of the stairs, I was in shock to see my son lying unconscious, with a pool of blood still flowing beneath him. My daughter stood looking at her brother with a joyful smile. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she held a kitchen knife covered in blood. I rushed to embrace my son's small body, which was pale from blood loss. My wife quickly ran down the stairs, not knowing what was happening, only to scream. I froze when I saw my daughter following my wife. That's right, my wife had clearly been talking to her in the room. I saw her down here now. The immediate thing to do was to take my son to the hospital. The three of us anxiously waited outside, not saying a word to one another. When the doctor came out and reported that my son had passed the critical phase, but needed a long time to recover, my wife broke down crying in despair, continuously asking me how this tragedy occurred. I didn't know how to explain it to her. That night, my wife stayed at the hospital with our son, while I and our daughter would go home. On the way home, I gently asked my daughter about her strange behavior in recent days. She burst into tears, recounting in a choked voice that night when she awoke groggily and she saw me staring at her with a creepy smile and unblinking eyes. When I heard that story, I immediately denied it. I swear to God that I did what I did that night. I also told my daughter about the incident I had witnessed with her taking action against her little brother. Of course, she insisted she hadn't done anything and had an alibi. Could our house be haunted? As we got closer to home, my daughter tightened her grip on my right arm, her expression one of terror, unable to speak. I followed her gaze and saw a man lying on the sidewalk. His position was right where the streetlight shone the brightest. I could clearly see his state at that moment. All four limbs were twisted in bizarre positions. His face was turned upward with his mouth agape, and his eyes bulging out as if they would burst, blood streaming from his eyes. I got out of the car and approached him. I was even more shocked to see that it was the neighbor. I quickly called the police. The scene was examined, and Louis's body was taken away. I had a bad feeling, so I sat in the car with my daughter and waited without going inside the house. The entire evening, my daughter slept in the back seat while I stayed awake. In the morning, I went inside to get things to return to the hospital. My daughter cried as she recounted the entire event to Kate. I embraced my wife and children to console them, knowing they needed me more than ever. The police informed me about the investigation results into Louis's death. The forensic examination discovered a significant amount of scraps of paper in his stomach. All of them bore bizarre symbols. They even found human flesh in his stomach. Louis had a wife and a 2-year-old son, but they hadn't been seen for several months. When I learned this information, I immediately moved out of the new house. I don't know what terrible things would happen to my family if we continued to stay there.
Mm-hmm.